Hello and welcome to this AM Supplier Insight, hosted by me, Tim Rose, the editor of Automotive Management. So I'm joined today by Tom Binley, who's the Business Development Director of Assurant. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us. So, Tom, getting down to business straight away, we know Assurant as a major supplier to the UK motor retail industry. But tell us about the broader business and how you've developed that kind of understanding of consumer needs that you've talked to me previously about.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tim. It's a really good question to start. So I think to start, understanding our strategy is critical to understand why we've developed such a strong razor sharp focus on consumer trends. So Assurance strategy globally and then in Europe is built strategically and deliberately around the customer and what we refer to as the connected customer. So we protect 300 million customers worldwide across our connected device, connected home, and connected car business line. In automotive specifically, this is 55 million vehicles through partnerships with major OEMs and retailers around the world. So it's crucial that we continually understand, monitor, track, and invest to ensure longevity in the market, which is why we do invest so heavily in customer data, consumer research, to make sure where we invest has the right consumer outcome. We're really proud to be celebrating 60 years in automotive this year, and we only have this longevity because of our continued innovation and evolution for our business partners on consumer changes. I think if we then look at the kind of the last 4 or 5 years in the business lines I've talked about, so our connected home, connected device, and connected car business line, we've really seen a convergence across these. So historically, a phone was a phone, a car was a car, and it was almost unheard of to think that they were going to be linked in any way. This is really changing. So if I take me personally, I have a BMW EV. Without my phone, I can barely use my car, right? It's really tricky. With my phone, I don't need a car key. So we're really seeing that convergence. So today, phones are more than just communication tools, right? And I think vehicles go beyond mobility. They're part of a connected ecosystem central to our brand partners' daily life. And adapting to that is essential, which is why we do have such a razor sharp focus on the trends, shifts, and innovations that impact our customers. And then that really feeds into our innovation teams and their process to make sure that what our brands are offering their consumers are fit for purpose and will continue to be so.
Okay, Tom. And in the role that you have, you're out seeing motor retail customers all the time. You're talking to them about consumers, and what is it that your customers want to know about consumers?
Yeah, so at Assurant, I support new client partnerships and growth with OEMs, franchise and car supermarkets. So I get to speak regularly to a diverse set of leaders across the auto business line, right? So whether that's in the UK, a UK franchise retailer, or even an OEM that's operating across numerous countries in Europe, it's probably the part of my role I enjoy the most because I get such fascinating insight and learning from people kind of at the top of their game, which is really interesting. So we've had a really good start to the year and we've had some really exciting conversations with brands that just want to know about our story and hear about the way that we see the world through our approach for today and also the futures. I do think we're uniquely placed in the market. If I think back to some of the conversations we've had so far this year around innovation and the future, I think the real key trend is being customer first and building everything around that consumer, which is really exciting to hear. So brands are investing and partnering to ensure that they can interact, transact, and be where customers want them to be when they want. There's also real focus on understanding how to optimize that user experience so it's as engaging and as effective as it can be. I think there's a challenge there, though, if I'm honest, and there is absolutely a gap in expertise around how to truly optimize that online digital journey for consumers and being exactly where they want when they want you. And I think the other challenge is the investment in the technology and infrastructure can be really costly. And some brands just don't have the resource in order to do that because the resource is being invested elsewhere, right? And I think the other challenge is that most brands across that value chain are fighting to hold on to that customer and their data and also that customer experience. So if we take last week as an example, I was with a couple of colleagues and we were talking to a retailer brand about being able to extract connected diagnostic data from a vehicle. So this can be preemptive and forced in or pulled into a customer facing app, which from a customer experience perspective when buying a vehicle from a used car retailer absolutely makes sense and would be a brilliant consumer experience in their time of need. However, this week we were talking to a major OEM who said that a real key focus for them is ensuring that customers stay in their ecosystem. It's a fully connected solution through both the vehicle and the mobile, and that they control that. So there's a real challenge there, because you've got a retailer that's got a really strong idea around a customer experience, but you've got an OEM that wants to control that as well. So again, yeah, there's a lot that we're talking to brands about, and there's a lot of excitement, but I think that definitely the real key trend is that customer experience.
So certainly, Tom, and I mean, you mentioned earlier about the kind of connected world that we live in. Assurant has done some recent research on that. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we have, and I think just to give the listeners some kind of context behind that research, it's an annual global study that we conduct to understand consumer trends, specifically around connectivity across all of our business lines, including automotive. And obviously, given our core channel in the UK space in particular, there's a real focus on value-added products. And if we start to think about then the vehicle connectivity and the distribution of those products, we want to understand what are the consumer trends that are then coming, and the research is a great indication of that. So there are some value-added points to take away. Obviously, I'm not going to give everything away. If anybody wants to hear and see the research in full, they can obviously reach out to me and we can talk it through. But a couple of the key points. One of the questions we asked was whether consumers would like the ability to purchase additional products through vehicle connectivity. So again, going back to my early point, this is something that was completely unheard of, or probably maybe not unthinkable, but unheard of, say 5-6 years ago. But we're really seeing this as a trend. So if we do start to think about that vehicle connectivity and the distribution of value-added products, it's interesting. So being able to purchase products through connected apps is already there. If you take Tesla as an example of that, you can do that now. However, I'm yet to see or aware of an example where you could purchase, for example, whilst you're in ownership, an extended warranty through the dashboard of your vehicle. You obviously can through some customer apps, and you can do that through one of our applications. But can you actually do that through the vehicle connectivity? So this is where it gets quite interesting. So if you look at the respondents that we had, actually less than 50% overall said they would like to purchase warranty, a service plan, a cosmetic, or any other value-added product in this way. So that would then say perhaps there isn't a demand, right? Less than 50%. But where it gets interesting is when you then look at the age groups. So this was at 78% for Gen Z and 64% in millennials. So dare I say it, for the slightly younger demographic, there is a demand. So I think when you then look about what does that mean for brands, how many brands and retailers can truly enable this, and how many retailers focus really on point of sale only? I think some of the other areas that was just as a snapshot that was of real interest to consumers around connectivity was in the in-car payment capability. So being able to go to Starbucks and actually purchase your flat white through the infotainment system of your vehicle. Again, that's something that I'm quite excited about that will come at some point. Being able to actually connect with other vehicles directly. So being able to potentially connect with, say, your partner's car whilst they're on the road. Having the internet connection in the vehicle, which is something that's quite popular and quite standard now. And I think finally, something that, again, backs up some research that we did a few years back was the ability to purchase sort of our type of products through subscription style structures. So again, some really exciting outputs from the research and to kind of show you the trends that are coming around vehicle connectivity.
Absolutely, and just further on that, Tom. Obviously, speaking as someone who certainly isn't a millennial, but actually, as consumers now, we all value convenience, and in future, the ability to purchase an extended warranty or whatever in the car is going to be invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a brilliant customer experience. So just imagine you've got, say, a brand new car that's out just coming at the end of its 3-year manufacturer warranty, for example, or even just outside its 12 months, and you pull up on your drive, and then you get a notification through your dash to say, did you realize you could extend your protection for a period of X, Y, Z? And again, when you talk about convenience, you're not waiting on an email, you're not waiting for a telephone. It's a slick customer experience to be able to purchase.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, Tom, obviously the research is a very useful understanding of future thinking and needs of consumers. But are there any other examples of how motor retailers can put that to use?
Yeah, I think I kind of mentioned at the beginning about brands having a real focus on utilizing technology to engage with consumers where and when they want. This is something we've been talking about a few times, and I've said it several times on webinars with yourself, Tim, right? This is really, really important, being where your customers want you when they want you. And if we break that down into something specific, I think the key takeaway is that OEMs and retailers should be looking at how they market, advertise, and distribute the products, not just the vehicles, but the whole offering. And I think that does need to adapt and evolve. So how many brands do truly just, or how many brands are reliant only on a point of sale distribution process, right? And that could also end up being at the end of a pretty long-winded sales process. And the data we're seeing is that some consumers just don't want that, and being able to purchase it when they want in their own convenience is really key. So again, if we go back to the data, if 78% of the younger car buying demographic want to be able to do this through their vehicle or through their applications connectivity, are retailers potentially missing sale because they're not adapting to how their consumers want to be able to transact with that business? I think that's a really, really key point. So I think if I was to summarize kind of the conversations we're having and what we're seeing, is absolutely about being where your customer wants you to be when they want you, and being able to facilitate that will really help retailers going forward.
Certainly. And just to kind of reiterate on that point, Tom, essentially we're talking about in the future, it will make the sales executive's job easier. Currently, they're balancing a portfolio of products that, like you say, the customer is probably they're excited about buying the car. They want to kind of get on the road, and actually, the sales executive is presenting various other useful products to them. Whereas, as an industry, we can embrace the longer journey, the longevity of that, to give them opportunities to buy at a much sooner or even later point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It should make their lives easier. And I think the other element that is a real win is the consistency in what it looks like for that customer as well in the sales process. So when you start thinking about regulated products, clearly we've got to be very deliberate on how that product is sold to the customer based on the individual retailer's permissions. So being able to control that customer experience, again, I know it's a term I'm using quite a bit, but being able to control that and make sure it is truly consistent, it's adhering to the regulatory guidance as well, is another real key win, especially when you start thinking about insured products.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I think we're going to have to wrap up on that note, Tom. Thank you very much for your conversation. Some great insights for retailers there and viewers. Thank you for watching. Do keep an eye out on AM Online for further AM supplier insights in the future.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Bye-bye.